Well, welcome everybody. Sorry we get a little slow start on week one.
Yeah, one of the things we're also doing is we're recording this and we're also videoing it so that we can help other classes when they when people miss or can't complete the class. For those of you that don't know, my name is Steve Bray, and I'm the founder of Power Plus and the founder of the Giving University. And Steve Namaroff is the one who initially helped me to launch the Giving University in 2005, and then we also Steve wrote most of the material for the class, and so we've gone through a few changes and iterations, and hopefully you guys will have a really enjoyable time. So at the end of the day, the goal of the class for you all is to become ambassadors of the Giving University. And what that does is it allows you to take the money that we put in to the account for the Giving University. In other words, we take it from Power Plus and we move a certain amount of our profits, and you won't know how much of our profits we move in there, but we move a certain amount of our profits into the Giving University, and then the Giving University ambassadors, students like you, will disperse that money, and probably about 75% of the money gets dispersed through the students. So the reason why it's important for you to be at the class and do any makeups that we have set aside is because we want you to understand our process for generosity of our money. There's an underlying rule, and we'll talk about this, and it's kind of this. You've heard the golden rule. Golden rule is he who has the goals makes the rules, and so we have made some rules and guidelines for you guys to follow in terms of dispersing the money. So by the end of this course, you will have given away to a local charity of your choice $1,000 and be eligible to go on a trip someplace in the world, wherever you choose. It could be in the United States, however you choose to express that. But teams will team up, and you will go and disperse a larger amount of money, and usually the larger amount of money is up to about $50,000. So it really makes a high impact in countries that are extremely poor. I came back from Mozambique. They have a 62% unemployment, and poverty is at a ridiculously high rate amongst people. So we went to several orphanages, and we went to find places that really needed the money. And the graduates of the Giving University, the ambassadors, determine where that money goes and how much to what, and how to do that. So in this 8-week course, we're going to give you, the basis for how we see it, how we think about it, get your input. And this is a collaborative class. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas, and we want to hear how you think about generosity, and then talk about generosity from our own personal experiences, from different places of truth, the Bible being one of them, and other places of truth, from anything from Proverbs, all the way along. So we want to be challenged. We want to challenge you. We desperately want to hear your feedback and pushback. We've gotten in some great discussions, and it's helpful to the class because it's ever changing and it's growing as we hear the feedback. So let me give you a brief history of how we got here. So in 1975, I grew up in a pretty rough family. 1975, I became a Christian, and I wanted to be a pastor. And so I took off in that direction. By the time 5 years had passed, I was teaching 3 Bible studies a week, and I had joined a course to plant a church in 2 years. And in the middle of that, and I recognize that that this class, there are Christians and non-Christians, and there are people who haven't determined any faith, and there are people who are not even sure, or maybe even mad at God. Whatever. Everybody is welcome. We love the challenge and the intellectual stimulation of that. I'm giving you an honest feedback of where I'm coming from and how I got to this, to founding the Giving University. So I set out, and I will say some challenging things, like God speaks. He wants to communicate with us, and he wants to help us understand his ways. So having said that, in the middle of my course to go plant a church in 2 years, and the pastor at the time was John Wimber, he had planted 2,400 churches. So this guy was serious as a heart attack about teaching people about planting churches. I get basically, in the Blues Brothers terms, a message from God, okay? Which is, I want to bless you in business so you can be a blessing in the kingdom. The kingdom meaning things related to Christianity, things related to the poor, things related to what God's doing in the world. And so I took that and ran off. I founded Power Plus at that point, and we grew the company, and we were doing great. And my oldest son at the time was 18. I took him on a missions trip to Bosnia, and we went and we toured all over Bosnia. How this happened was somebody came and asked for money. Happened to be a friend and a guy that I knew, and he said, we're doing work in Bosnia for children's relief. And so Chandler and I saddled up. We went to Bosnia to check it out. After 3 or 4 days, it was not a good experience. And I asked my son, what do you think about what they're doing here? And he said, pretty politely, he said, what do you mean? I said, well, how do you think they're doing? And he said, well, I don't have too much regard for what they're doing. I've seen more work done by high schoolers in a Mexico, mission than what they're doing here, and these guys are supposed to be professionals. And I said, yeah, that's my impression too. Let's get out of here. And so we left early. And I said, the tag on to that was, Chandler, aren't you glad we didn't give the big check that said Bosnia Children's Relief and send that from the United States over here? And he looked at me kind of whimsical and said, is that what we're doing here? And I said, yeah, that's what we're doing here. Following year, I took my second son, Chase, and we went to India, and we toured around, and it was amazing. We had a great experience. Everywhere we went, we saw orphans being rescued off the streets. The reason why they were being rescued off the streets, if they aren't picked up off the streets by the time they're 7 or 8, they're put in the sex slave market or in some kind of drug running. And we saw, and we helped them work on building an orphanage and distributing wheelchairs. And we helped them bring in their first container loads of wheelchairs. And this particular group ended up distributing more wheelchairs than anyone worldwide. And so it ended up being a great thing. So in that regard, we felt really good about all that we were giving to them, and we did our own internal investigation. But when I came home, I was a little bit feeling bad because, I couldn't tell if my kids really wanted to do this with me, and what I wanted to do was I wanted it to be interactive, and so as I prayed, God spoke to me again and said, this is bigger than that, and he said, I want you to start a giving university. So brainstorming with the guys and Steve and some of the other original board members, I said, let's come up with a name for the Giving University. We're going to teach people about the virtues of generosity. We're going to talk about openly about what turns them on and turns them off, and what the biblical perspective is. And so they came back 2 weeks later and said, we can't think of a name, let's just call it the Giving University. So the Giving University it is, and so this is basically an 8-week course. We're never going to ask you for money. We're never going to ask you to put any money in or pay for the trip. You're our ambassadors, and we want you to go, and we want you to feel fully empowered by us to do that. In order to do that, you got to take all 8 weeks, as I said earlier, and we want to see you. Come on in, Blaine. So Blaine's been fighting alligators in traffic from LA. So what we want to do is we want to give you a sense of not only your own control. We want you to find your passion. We want you to take this 8 weeks and maybe just do your own internal gut check. We're not gonna we're gonna disband certain beliefs about generosity that are not true and not what God expects us to do, and we're going to teach a little bit about how to think about the poor, entitlement, and a number of things. So with that, I would love to take any questions if anybody has any questions, and if you're on mute, just unmute yourself and ask me a question. And I will be in and out of these classes on Monday. I'm teaching 2 classes on Wednesday in Mission Viejo. So Steve last week came and interacted with me in the class down there. So you'll get a chance to meet several board members, and you'll have access. And if you ever have questions, we're available 24/7. And by the way, we don't get any pay for doing this. There's no load on the money that goes into the Giving University. So if we put $1 in, $1 goes out. So we designate that money, and we are serious as a heart attack about this. So everyone that's involved loves to do it. Dan Dyke is on the board, my wife, Mike Lang, Steve Namaroff, Sam Cerny, and myself, and Brian Schultz. So if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything, there's lots of people to ask questions of, and you can get to us through the email, and you'll have a GU connection for that. So questions, any questions? All right, you get an F for interaction on the first day.
We're gonna make you speak up at some point. So you can't get through the class without some interaction. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the slides, hopefully, and can y'all see the slides? Nod your head, wave your hands.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so as Steve said, we believe that generosity done right can change the world, and we believe that in many cases generosity is done wrong, and we believe that in many cases generosity is not done often enough and at the right levels. So our goal is to inspire you, to ignite a sense of generosity in you, but it's not because we want your money, as Steve said. We're never going to ask you, how much you give or what percentage or anything like that. That's your own personal determination. We're just going to talk about the why.
Right.
and the how.
And let me just say right here, you know, I've watched, you know, people have objection to feeling comfortable, you know, talking about this subject of generosity, because you think, well, what if I go through the class and I find out I suck at generosity? You know, you are going to come out of this and you're going to have a clear understanding, and it's not judgmental. We're not going to lay a trip on you. And as Steve said, generosity, many times, the way people ask for money and the way that the pressures there, or the thievery of the money, we understand that and recognize that. We want to help make that something that is really acutely where you're aware of everything. So that's part of the interactive piece of the class.
Yeah, and we've probably taught 300-400 people. We've never had somebody go through the class and say that they didn't learn anything. We've always had people say that it was a good use of their time. So it doesn't matter whether you've grown up within a philosophy or an outlook of generosity. I think you're going to learn something that you've never known before. So you're here for these training classes. As Steve said, we don't make any assumptions on your religious background, your political affiliation, your financial strength or weakness. We believe that what we're teaching applies to all of you. We may share stories of our personal faith, but how you take that is certainly up to you.
And we won't sigh and give you dirty looks or roll our eyes if you voted for Hillary, Donald Trump, if you are an atheist or an agnostic or any other religious affiliation. This is all about. And let me give you. I say this to some of my top-notch Christian friends, that if Jesus was coming to the earth, for 24 hours, I always ask them, where do you think that he would be found? And they're trying to pick the most influential church. And I said, nope, wrong. I think Jesus would be found, in a bar, in a cigar bar, someplace, and there would be the scandalous headlines. But he's going to go to where people are in need, and that was the story of his life. So that's where we're coming from. We want to take on every aspect of humankind and have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of things that Steve and I don't necessarily have the exact same view on. We joke with each other about those things, so it's not like we're coming at things exactly the same way, and you're going to hear different viewpoints as you hear from different people. We're gonna, in a lot of cases, we're just gonna be throwing out questions and opening up to discussion, but in the end, it's gonna be a personal decision or a personal opinion that you choose. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in this class is teaching you how to investigate nonprofit organizations, and we're going to go into some pretty good detail on how to go about looking at the tax forms that each nonprofit publishes, and give you a few key things to look for. And you will, in the next coming 3 or 4 weeks, you will be presenting to the rest of the class an organization that you have found, and you may decide that it is an organization worth giving to, or you may present it to the class and say, I thought it was an organization worth giving to, but after my investigation, I've changed my mind. And as Steve loves to say, a no is a great answer, because it'll lead to a yes somewhere else. We've had a lot of students who initially, if I asked them on week one, who are you planning on proposing a grant to, they'd have an organization, but by the time they finished their investigation, they ended up choosing a different organization. So keep an open mind with that. Once you complete the whole 8 weeks, you become eligible to go on a research trip. So we have already come up with several trips that still have openings that you will be eligible for because they start after this 8 weeks is up. But there's a team that Dan's going to be taking a team to Serbia, and another team to Mexico. We've got a team going to Uganda, and you'll be hearing more about those things as the weeks progress. If you feel strongly about proposing a trip, then you will have the opportunity to do that as well. So when we go on a trip, we're looking at an organization. Is that organization having an impact on the people it's trying to serve? And we may investigate 2 or 3 organizations in the same trip. It's not you have to be an expert in this thing and you have to serve in this capacity. It is an observation trip. You are going as Giving University ambassadors, and you are helping us determine whether they are worthy of a significant grant in order for them to proceed with their mission. We also, if you guys can't come up with enough organizations to give to, we believe that, as we said, generosity done right can change the world. We don't believe in holding on to funds. We believe in getting them out there. If we believe that $1 worth of donation can have $5 worth of impact, then we want to get that dollar out as quickly as possible, because we want to multiply the impact. And so we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. Questions so far on what it is Giving University is about and how we operate, trips, grants? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Are you limited to third world countries? Are you open to second? Is it mostly humanitarian? What are your boundary lines?
For the trips, generally grants and trips, as you'll hear from, we're looking for impacting people in need. So as long as you can propose a trip and there are needy people in that area, obviously, there's needy people in the United States, and there are people that don't really want to jump on an airplane and spend 24 hours on a plane. So we may go to Alabama or Brooklyn or, Los Angeles and do a trip that way. So not necessarily any restrictions. There's a bit of us that wants you to see what life is like outside of, the areas that we live in today.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Okay. We don't have to show Steve Bray's video because you had Steve Bray live. All right, so now I want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves. We're a big group, so please just kind of give us a minute or two. But I want to get an idea of who you are and how you found out about the course and why you decided to join it.
Let me make a few points as we were talking about, really as we were talking about just this whole concept. there are some people that are in this crew now that have got international experience. They've got, not only travel, but putting trips together. And so if you guys have a trip that you want to put together, we're at the beginning of the year, we're going to put together maybe 5, 6, 7 trips, different places in the world. We approve the trips. We don't, necessarily pick and force people into trips. So if you have an interest in a country or in a ministry or in a place that's doing good things, put that forward in an email to us, and we'll do a little bit of investigating. And for those of you from Saddleback, we would love to get exposed to what you guys are doing and what you've seen, and if you have hosts. So when we travel around the world, and I'll just tell you how this works, we look for somebody to host us. We don't just pick a place and say, let's go to the poorest country in the world and see, do an investigation. We look for a host that can basically help us understand what their need is, because traveling's dangerous, and one, and two, we're not going to places where any travel agent would ever steer you or direct you. So we need somebody, eyes and ears on the ground, people that know how everything works in that country, so that we can have a really meaningful experience. And then they take us, and we pay all the expenses for that host to do that. So just so that you guys are thinking about that, have conversations. If you're with somebody in a class that's experienced, talk to them, pick their brain about some great places to go. And FYI, just so you know, at the end of the course, for all the Power Plus employees, once you've gone through the course and done your trip, that earns you, for the rest of your employment at Power Plus, the right to go anywhere take 2 weeks of paid service time every year. So in addition to your vacation and your normal your normal vacation, we give you 2 weeks of service time. So we're serious about this, and we feel that if someone invests the time to go through that they can volunteer at their church, or they can volunteer in some other place in the country, and we'll actually back that up and support that by paying you through that time. Like I said, we're serious as a heart attack. And then the third thing is that we have, if you notice, we've got young kids in the class and we have older people in the class. The reason for that is that we're making an investment in influencing generosity. So when you get through the course, if it really has an impact on you, we expect to basically turn you loose in the world and go out and have your own impact. If you're real young, like Dee's kids, they got no money, and they got nothing. If they get any money, it's out of Dee Kersey's teller machine, right? And that's about it, unless they got a job. But it's a lifetime investment in how they, see the world of generosity. So it's really, really worth our time and our energy to do that. So it's a great experience for them. If you're older, you got cash. And if we can reallocate your spending patterns, and we know that you'll make an impact with your own money, and you can get out there and get involved. So we see the whole gamut as being very, very important. Kristen Pedersen, her mom and her went to Thailand. I happened to be on that trip, and she said it was the most important thing she had done. She's 72 years old. So, it's never too late, and it's never too young, for us. And I actually went on I took a trip of 20 plus high schoolers, and it was probably one of the most incredible trips I've ever done before. So, with that, we'll get into the slides, and try and get through some of the
Start-
material.
Start the meat of the material here.
Yeah.
Alright, so let me share. Alright, so what we're gonna do is have you, let's see. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is grab a piece of paper and jot down, think for a few minutes, jot down what you would consider to be your definition of generosity. And so take a minute doing that, and then we'll do a 2-minute bio break, and we'll start back up again in just a few minutes. All right. Somebody in Corona have a definition they want to share with the group? Don't be shy.
The microphone is.
Okay, so generosity to me, I would say, it's finding ways to make an impact, helping someone else by giving, be it by a financial contribution, your time, serving, or other means. Just helping somebody else out, by any means that you can.
Okay. Who else? Anybody else in Corona got
I'll
one?
do mine. Yeah,
Speak up.
I'll do mine. I just, my first thoughts were wide open hearted giving with God touched wisdom and intention, integrity, and great joy.
Wow. Okay.
Is that copyrighted?
No, it's just a blog.
We might steal it.
A word from a blog.
All right. Anybody else have one over there?
I have one. So generosity to me is a giving spirit and the ability to help others in need, not necessarily monetarily, but time, kind words, actions, or a giving heart, to sum it up in a few words.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Somebody who's remote want to unmute and present? Need a couple. Don't make me pick on you.
I will. Shaylee will.
All right.
So my definition of generosity is giving without expecting anything in return by sharing either your time, talents, or resources.
Okay. Blaine, you have one?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Act of giving without expecting anything in return, whether that be time, money, physical help, or talents.
Okay. Anybody else have something that's got a keyword in there that's different?
I have, generosity to me is asking God, because I'm a believer, what is bread and what is seed with what I'm given. And it's open eyes, open heart, and open resources to leave a wake larger than myself, creating a ripple effect by seeing the hidden and needy ones.
Wow. What do you mean by what is bread?
When the Lord gives me resources, what is meant for me, my home, my children, to eat, to build our life, to do responsible things, and what part of it is meant to be seed, to give away, to touch people, to invest in other things in people's lives that won't necessarily ever be recognized or tangibly benefit my own children. It's not a 401k or a college plan, etc. So what am I sowing, and what does he bring to me? Because we all have a different paradigm, right? For one guy, $50,000 a year is extravagant, and for another guy, that feels like nothing. So
Yeah.
each one of us have our own formula. That's what I mean.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay. I want to kind of go through the official Giving University definition. We'll go from there. So the Giving University definition that we're going to be using throughout the course is freely giving or sharing things we value for the benefit of others. And there's three key components to this in the definition. The first one is the word freely, because if you give because you have to give, that's different from giving because you want to give. And so we distinguish between giving and generosity in that, if you are paying your taxes, you're giving to the government, but you're not necessarily doing it freely. So it's an obligation there. The second thing is things we value, and you guys have touched on the various things that we value. We value our money, we value our talents, we value our time. We are going to distinguish a little bit between generosity and service. Not that it's more or less important, but we want to kind of get people away from the idea that the two are sort of interchangeable, that if I give of my time, that excuses me from having to give of my money. Now again, we've got poor, starving students, and if you have no money to give, then your time is great. But we're going to be focusing on the money aspect of it.
Cash. We're focusing on cash. Take the cash out of your pocket and put it into something meaningful. And the reason why we have that distinction is because we have a crisis of generosity. Generosity has been falling off, and I can use the statistics of the church that generosity has fallen to an all-time low, sort of worldwide, I'm sorry, really in the United States, to about 2.7%. So people, if you have a unit of measurement of giving properly, that's fallen off, and that should be a much higher number. It's causing a lot of stress in certain churches, and also with many different charities and things. So if we can find the motivation. Now, the difference is I have a friend who's a dentist, and when she takes herself and goes to a third world country and gives of her time, that is could be converted to cash, because she could stay home and make $200 an hour. Same thing with people who donate legal services or other things. So those are units of measurement of cash. In terms of service and money, I believe that we're supposed to do both. And the Giving University is really focused on the money side of it. And the reason why it's focused on the money side of it is because there's this rationalization that if I give of my time, that is in replacement of giving money. And A, it's not biblical, and B, it's not practical. So, my suggestion is that you think about this class as, talking about the money that you give, and we're not proposing that you have to go and figure out how to, give in some sacrificial way. You can give in a very practical way, and we're not imposing on you. So if Bill Gates, and I like to do this little demonstration, if Bill Gates, who's worth $76 billion, the richest top 8 of the world, worth $76 billion, gave away $75 billion would he be living sacrificially? And the answer is no, because any one of us in this class would raise our hand and say, I'll try the trick of living on $1 billion for the rest of my life. Okay? So the concept of that we give sacrificially is kind of a false construct. I'm going to tell you, I don't give sacrificially. I have 6 motorcycles, a car that does 200. I have a beautiful house. I live in a great place. So we're not asking you to look at your money and your budget and somehow live sacrificially. If you choose to give up, something really nice to put into a charity, that's good. That's a choice that you make. But that's not something that God is imposing upon us. Jesus encouraged us to live in such a way that we thought of heaven, and he said, give so that the things that you have, you can store up and treasure in heaven. And so if you think about life, okay, you have two choices. Okay, you have the present and what you own and use and live off of now, and what you, and from the Christian perspective, want to put forward into treasure in heaven. And that is going to constantly be tugging at your heart. It's going to be a battle. I battle with it, every single day. So we want to encourage you to think about this in terms of we're talking about money, and we're going to talk about the concepts of how we get to a place of generosity. So divorce service from the money side, and then we'll use that as our basis.
Yep. And it's always interesting when I hear definitions of generosity, whether we hear the word sacrifice or not. We want to get to the point where you enjoy doing it, and if it brings you joy at whatever level, it's not it could be at 30% of your income, but it's not necessarily a sacrifice because you're doing it because you want to do it. So, and the word sacrifice just always has this weird negative connotation to it.
And in addition to that, we're not going to use percentages. I went to a giving seminar, and they talked about the concept, and they kept talking about these people that were giving these large percentages. And actually the Bible has, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, has moved completely away from that. We can have a fuller discussion about that. But you at your best self will divorce yourself from all the formulas and all those things, and consider what's in front of you an opportunity to give, and know that you can't outgive God. So if you can't outgive God, then here's an opportunity. How do you want to give, and how do you want to put money behind that? And that's what we're going to be exploring for the next 8 weeks.
Yep. Okay, so the first piece of our definition was the word freely. The second piece was things we value. So the point in things we value is that the most common form of giving is going through your closet and things that you don't value anymore, putting them into a trash can or trash bag, and having someone pick it up or donating it to somebody. We're not saying don't do that, but we're just saying that generosity is giving up something that you value, as opposed to just something that's waste for you. The third piece is for the benefit of others, and obviously it needs to benefit them, but also with the word others, think of others as outside of your immediate family. We'll be sending out a link to a video as part of your something we want you to watch between this week and next, and you'll hear a guy who's being interviewed who says, "Yeah, I'm generous because I share my toys with my little brother." And sharing your toys is just part of being a family member. It's not doesn't fit into generosity for us. So freely giving or sharing things we value for the benefit of others. So with that definition, anybody have any objections, comments, thoughts on that? Because we'll be using that throughout the course. So if there's something there, then let me know.
So from a biblical standpoint, God loves a joyful giver, okay? So let's say you have 4 kids and you have one of your kids, you explain to them the need to give and to help out with this project, and one says, oh yeah, I'm all about that, I'll do that. And the other one, maybe, one is kind of neutral and one's kind of grumpy about it, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it, and they're not very joyful about it. The act from the biblical standpoint is still valued, still counted. The job still gets done. But what I want to see you guys do is wrestle with: do you always feel joyful? I don't always feel joyful. I'm just going to tell you right now. There are some times when I'm having a wrestling match with my heart. Over this stuff, and I'm going to be, very transparent with you guys throughout this class, because this isn't about, setting some high bar standard. Sometimes I look at, well, I could pay down some debt, or I could buy a new gadget thing, boat, motorcycle, car, and I think, well, I probably, shouldn't do that. And I'm not necessarily coming from the basis of joy. I can say that that's my highest goal in terms of giving from a hilarious place, and we want you to give out of faith and out of joy and actually out of happiness. So if you're struggling at some point, there's a point at which generosity can be obedience. Well, just pure obedience, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be joyful. Now, second, nowhere in the Bible does it say if you don't give joyfully that the gift is disqualified. It doesn't say that. So you can give and it's not disqualified. It just, back to my kids, I look at them. One says, oh yeah, I'm all about that, that's awesome. Another one, maybe more of a Republican, yeah, those guys should be, working harder and taking care of themselves. And, but they give out of respect and maybe out of obedience. The point being that, I think the joy element is what we aim for and what we hope for, and many times the joy element comes at the back end of our experience. And we've seen this time and time again where people come back from trips, they come back from their experience, they took their time and they took their money and they took these elements, and they go and they have this amazing experience and say, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And that's a part of the joy experience as far as our definition.
The point is that there are some barriers that people have to giving, and we don't want joy to be a prerequisite, because we don't want people to say, well, I just don't feel joyful about it, so until I feel joyful, I'm not going to give. Okay, so sacrifice we've talked about. I have a slide on generosity versus giving just for you, Steve. So giving could include things that are not valuable to you. Not to say you shouldn't give them, but we distinguish that from generosity.
Yeah, Steve, we don't want your cassette tapes.
Or used underwear.
Right.
Or
right.
missionary barrel.
Rotten food. You name it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Medicine past its dates.
All right, so we've got 4 possible things here. that we want you to just jot down true, false, true, false, true. Here's 4 things. So take a minute and see if you can identify whether each one of these 4 things is generosity or not, and then we'll review them. All right, number 1, dad buys a new BMW for a 16-year-old son. Generosity or not generosity?
Not generosity.
Not generosity, why?
Well, one reason is it's family.
Yeah, and it may be unwise too, but that's another subject.
I say it's generosity.
Hey, Cursies, you Cursey kids, don't get any ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure Michael thinks it's generosity. Yeah, so no, it's within the family, doesn't count. Number 2, dentist fills cavities for the poor for free. Apologize for the spelling error there. Generosity or not generosity?
Potentially generosity.
And why do you say potentially?
Because I think it depends on where the materials and everything come from. Obviously, the time that the dentist spends is money out of his pocket as well, but I think it's more potential just depending on where everything came from, the items that he's using for the fillings and whatnot.
Okay. The dentist, though, if he's not doing it for the poor for free, he could be doing it for the rich for money, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, because it's his talents and he's using a skill. We typically classify that as generosity. If it's just going to the soup kitchen and dishing out soup, that's great, but that's more of a service kind of thing. So, all right, number 3, family donates all the stuff that didn't sell in the garage sale.
No way.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not stuff you value.
It's not stuff they value. It's not stuff that anybody who walked down the street valued. So not to say you shouldn't do it, because at some point somebody might get some value out of it, but it's not really generosity. Number 4, a man donates his old cassette tapes to the poor in Jamaica.
Are they copies of stuff he already has?
Potentially.
Is
Is it a different answer?
a cassette tape player.
All right, so the question here is, does it benefit the others? I used to say albums here, and then somebody told me that, albums have a lot of value, and, the poor in Jamaica could then sell them on eBay. But, if you have things that are valuable, but aren't valuable to the recipient, then you should consider selling them first and then donating the proceeds. Don't make the recipient do the hard work, and especially if that's not a good use of their time either. So for us, it's a no, a yes, a no, a no in there. So, all right, questions, comments on that? I think we will. I think we'll cut it from here rather than going into the next section, because I want you to spend some time and energy on the next section. So we will be sending out a link to a video that we want you to see, and we'll comment on it next week. And I may give you an assignment about starting to think about what types of people are you passionate about? What are the types of people that keep you up at night? So we'll start on that next week. Steve, comment?
Yeah, so just real quick, so start thinking about what your passion is. What wrong would you like to right? And if you have a Bible, read Isaiah 58, 1 through 14. Just read that and pick out, of that. If you don't have a Bible or you're not going to read the Bible, what are you passionate about? What wrong would you like to right? What would you like to bring justice to? And what's interesting, because we're going to we've got two wide open categories. We've got the poor, and we've got the needy, poor and needy, and evangelism. So somewhere in those two things, the poor and the needy and evangelism, you can find something that you can do. So if it's wells, if it's fresh water, something like that. We don't do dogs and cats and whales, okay? We don't do medical research. We want to focus it on things that are that we can measure and be tangible about how the impact that we're having.
Yeah, we're for us, it's and we'll talk more about this next week. But we're looking to benefit people, not oceans, trees, dogs, cats. So, not that can't be your passion. It just can't be your passion when you're giving university grant money. So,
all right. Any questions?
Steve, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure if we were on mute here or not. So as far as this program goes, I kind of asked the question last year at, I think it was the open enrollment for insurance benefits, and I asked, how far do you want to take this Giving University as far as spreading the word? Obviously, there's a lot of people in here that aren't Power Plus employees. How big do you want to grow this thing?
Huge. What we found is we can't, we cannot, outgive God, and He will make a way. We want to grow it as big as we can. We will take all newcomers that want to go through the course, and we will adjust and send and make more money.
we'll partner with other organizations, other corporations, churches, and we'll just see where things take us. We have no preconceived limits to it.
So far, and by the way, the money that we fund into the Giving University, all of that money is dispersed in that year. We don't store any money. The problems that are happening in the world are happening now, and they need now attention. So we're not, building up, millions and millions of dollars to, sit on the sidelines and, wait for the problem to happen. So we're going to deploy the money that's allocated through the year. If that grows and changes, we'll add more to it. If we get more students, we'll add more to it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, on that. So I have a second question in relation to that. So as far as finding other people, obviously you want more students, and you want other organizations to be able to give to Giving University as well, right? So you want donations. This is a full nonprofit organization, correct?
Yeah, it is a full nonprofit, though we don't have any agenda to get money from other people. That's not what we're not trying to get other people to donate to the Giving University. We are remaining pure in our focus towards having a single focus. We have had some organizations. Wells Fargo put $100,000 into the Giving University because they liked an organization that they couldn't give to because of their nonprofit status, and they were disallowed from doing it, so they gave it to us and said give it to them. So we passed through the full $100,000 to the organization that they gave it to. So we'll do stuff like that. Obviously, if employees or people want to make a donation and allocate that money, we'll allocate the money through, we'll give you the tax deductions. And the other thing that we also are active in doing, we just finished one and we're considering another one, but we'll take somebody who wants to start a nonprofit and we'll help them get their nonprofit started. We'll manage all of the back office while they figure out how to do their their nonprofit. And a lot of money is wasted and a lot of time is wasted in trying to figure out how to do all the nonprofit status. So I'll give you a quick example. So if someone has XYZ water drilling that they want to do nonprofit work for, they come to us. We open a DBA under the Giving University XYZ Drilling, and the money that's allocated to them, or if they raise money that's allocated to them, it'll come into the Giving University and we'll put it into that checking account and send it out and do all the tax work for them. So we'll do all the back office work for them, so they don't have to do anything but go out and drill wells and tell people, about what they're doing.
All right, I want to be conscious of your time, so we'll call it from here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Cool. Thank you.